My main topic, all right. I think we all have tried to avoid this amp. Um, at least you and I have tried to avoid this amp for about our entire guitar playing career.
Oh, Line
And
6 Spider.
not quite.
Okay.
But there just comes a time in a day where you have to accept the fact that it might be the best all around bedroom gig plug and go amp ever made.
Big statement.
Blues Junior.
Oh,
The Blues Junior is probably the most useful amp that was ever designed in the modern playing age. So I'm not talking about a deluxe, right? Because that's the most recorded. I'm not talking about, the Marshall Plexi that is probably the most iconic. I'm talking about the most useful for a working musician, guitar player, that you can leave at home, you can take to a gig, that you can mic up, that you could have as a backup, that you can keep quiet, that you can turn up, that you could have a fat switch,
okay. I get it. I get it.
has
I
reverb,
get it. It's got all these things. I get it. It's a great amp.
and guess what? The overdrive in it is way better on these new models than they ever were in the past.
Very good, actually.
Is the Blues Junior the best amp for today's musician?
I think if you're not playing like metal, or if you're not playing real hard rock, there's a pretty strong case for it.
Mm-hmm.
I think you just laid a very strong case for it.
Yeah.
Blues Juniors are honestly unbelievable amps. And with like just a speaker change, you can transform that amp in all. I'm not saying you need to change the speaker in a Blues Junior.
Right.
Because now the speakers that come in it, since they've done the upgrade on the new, what is it, Blues Junior 4?
Yeah, the 4.
So the new Blues Junior 4, they redone the overdrive circuit. They put a different speaker in there. They done all that type of stuff. And it's much better than it was on old iterations. However, you can change the speaker in it and dramatically change the sound of it. I've seen people put it in larger cabinets.
Right.
Just move the whole thing into a larger. I think Mojo Tone sells some of that stuff. And I think that it's very possibly the best amp out there for the average gigger.
That's what I'm thinking.
I'm trying to think of downsides. It doesn't have a direct out,
Nope, but not a lot of amps do.
which is a plus for me.
Sure.
I actually prefer that. And it doesn't have an effects loop, which is a plus for me.
Right.
Because I don't want one. But other than those two things, is there anything else that it's missing?
What can't a Blues Junior do besides volume at some point?
Well, then if it's a big enough place and volume's an issue, you're going to mic it.
Right.
So what can't it do? You're right.
I mean, it can't do heavy distortion. We talked about that. Even if you want...
I haven't tried.
So you can put a pedal on it,
Yeah.
right, and get it there. But, you're probably not going to get Guns N' Roses tone out of it.
Right.
That's pretty obvious.
Fair enough.
Also, the only other downside I could really think, everyone says it's a boxy sound.
Yeah.
And it is to a point. It's better than, like a Fender Tweed.
Pro Junior.
A Pro
something.
Junior. It's not as deep sounding as like, a deluxe reissue.
Yep.
A black face panel. I also don't think it's as deep as sounding as a silver face, but it's really not far off.
Right.
That's kind of the things working against it. But like you said, you put a speaker in it.
It changes the game. Or an extension cabinet. You sit
Yeah.
on top of a little
Yeah,
212
just plug
cabinet.
it in a 212.
Woo! Great
But-
amp.
Like a Blues Junior with pedals is almost unbeatable.
Yeah, I don't think you need a ton of pedals probably for it, unless you're playing complicated stuff or a real long set with a wide list of songs. And you know what I think about too is Blues Junior is fairly inexpensive these days. I mean, a used one, that is.
Sure.
Um,
Find them around $400 or $500.
yeah. What if you got a pair of those things?
Go stereo.
And go stereo or go wet dry or go, I mean, there's tons of options, or just have one as a backup sitting back there. So if one goes out, you grab the next one. And they've been proven to be road ready, tough
Absolutely.
amps.
Your biggest problem with the Blues Junior is deciding, do you want the lacquer tweed look or do you want the black Tolex?
I love that that's your biggest
That's
problem.
your biggest problem.
We should both go buy Blues Juniors right now.
I convinced myself.
I think you convinced me. I think you can.
But seriously, it is the most user-friendly for any working musician up for an amp that I think is out there.
I think I'm going to go buy one. I'm not joking. I think I'm going to go buy one. I've never owned one. And it's one of those amps.
We've avoided it for years.
We have.
We've told each other, like, you know what? Everyone buys a Blues Junior. I don't need that.
Yep.
But the more you think about it,
yeah, the more it makes sense.
the more it makes sense.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's like the end-all be-all amp. I'm not.
No. Is it going to be like your ideal tone in your head? Probably not.
No.
Is it going to be like something that you pull up on stage and you're like, yeah, I got a Blues Junior?
Right.
No. But guess what? That sucker gets the job done.
Yeah. I think there's one amp.
Puts the team on its back. You know what I mean?
I've been carrying this team for years.
I think there's one amp that rivals it. And there's only one reason why it doesn't beat it. But there's one amp that rivals it and doesn't beat it, though. It's the Hot Rod Deluxe.
Okay.
And it's an unbelievable amp. The new versions are great. The speaker's great. It's got reverb. It's got all those things. It does have an effects loop. The one reason why it doesn't beat it is it's so big and so heavy.
Heavy. Yep.
The cabinet's bigger, so it's not as boxy sounding.
Right.
It's a great pedal platform. You've got masters, all that type of stuff. And I have been on gigs where I've seen those things go down more. I knock on wood for everybody that's out there. I don't think I've ever seen a Blues Junior ever go down on a gig.
I've heard the reverb tank go out, or I don't know if it's a tank. It might be digital. I don't even remember.
Yeah.
But I've heard the reverb go out. I've heard that fat switch go out.
Yep.
But that sucker still works.
Still runs. Yeah, so I have seen, Hot Rod Deluxe go out. Not real often, but it has happened. It's probably tube related. It's probably something simple.
Right.
And those things, get rode hard.
Also, I
But-
will say that the Hot Rod Deluxe, I know it has 2 channels, but that second channel sometimes doesn't cut the mustard. Now, the new ones are really good.
Yeah.
The new ones are really good. But the old versions, not as good.
Yeah.
And I think the Blues Junior is just more reliable.
I think it's more reliable and it's way easier to move around. And I honestly think that the Blues Junior is built in such a way and sounds in such a way that it fits in the mix for a band
Perfect.
amazingly.
Yep.
It's just right where you need to be. I know it's boxy a little bit, some.
Here's what I can't get over.
It's right where it needs to be, though.
Here's what I can't get over. We're sounding like fanboys the more we talk.
It does. We don't even have one.
We don't even have one. But think about in an acoustic gig, it's the perfect like electric accompaniment.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying.
Yeah. It's the best buddy to an acoustic.
There we go. Thank
Yeah.
you. So the Blues Junior is great for that. It's great if you're playing like a full show with drums and everything because you fit right in the center.
Yep.
Like it's perfect in the mix. I mean, I honestly don't think there's a better all-around amp.
You know what? You might be right. For the average gigging musician, he needs to have the amp he loves the tone of. He needs a deluxe
He or she.
Tweed.
Come on now.
Okay, he or she. Folks, I don't mean anything by it. I'm just talking. So they need the amp that is their end-all be-all. They need the Plexi or Plexi style amp. They need the deluxe reverb. They need the Tweed Deluxe, the Vox AC30.
Yeah, we're not saying only get the Blues
No,
Junior.
they need their end-all be-all tones. However, for the working man amp that you need, I got to go to this gig and it's going to be small or it's going to be whatever. I just need to grab and go real quick. And you don't want to drag an AC32.
Right.
That you've got an AC15 and you're, trying to play with the master and get it just right. And sometimes it's kind of temperamental getting the right place. The Blues Junior is the answer.
It's the amp.
Gosh.
The amp.
It is. Gosh. Okay. Well, I think we've settled it.
Yep.
I think the Blues Junior
Greatest amp of all time.
might be the greatest amp of all time. Tell us what you guys think. We'll see you guys next week.
See ya.